Okay, and we're live. Going live on Odysee, double checking this real quick to see if the live stream is showing up. That way I can take comments from either StreamYard or Odysee directly. Let's take a look. See here. Alright, okay. Aha, there we go. Let's click it. Shut off the volume on it. Okay, let me see here. Alright, so I'm not going to press that button, but I'm going to just check here and see if they're okay. Seriously, hold on. Alright, so anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody. This is Deacon Joseph Swaden doing the second episode of the rebooted Orthodox Apologetics channel, where we'll actually have subjects and things like that. So this is the topic I've put up here, which was, that when trees fruit and how to do Orthodox apologetics. I've seen some positive things happening in the Orthodox apologetics world. And so this is something that's kind of a big deal to me, because I have been watching how this has been developing over the past few weeks, years, really years. And things are, I hate to say this, but not even hate to, they're better than they've been in a long time. When I started working in Orthodox apologetics 20-something years ago, it was not like this. There are people all over defending the true faith, and it is, honestly, it's a joy to watch. I mean, I've been following a lot of the different things happening. I know that, say, for example, like we've heard of this fellow Steve Skojec from 1 Peter 5. He's been talking to Orthodox people. This is good. There's possibilities there. There was a controversy between Vocab Malone and Jay Dyer. However, Vocab Malone apparently found some Orthodox to talk to who he'll be having a discussion with. So, anyway, somebody wrote, "Miss you, Deacon. Love you. We'll watch this later heading to the beach right now. Thank you, Ortho Matthew. Enjoy the beach." So anyway, but this is great news. This is, we're seeing more and more Orthodox apologists doing things, and that's a big deal. And I just wanted to point out that positive, because things are getting, people are getting the word out, which is actually kind of what the first subject that I wanted to talk about is. This is largely, this is a big deal in terms of how we're going to spread the faith, how Orthodox are going to do that, and how it's going to. Okay, hold on. I'm still not great at using these streaming things. Save. So what I wanted to talk about was the shift in the informational paradigm as society collapses. In following the whole thing with what's happening with Steve Skojec, that got me reading a little bit of Rod Dreher's most recent stuff, or I think it's his most recent stuff, for the American Conservative. And it was an article called "Living by Noble Lies." And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start putting stuff I see that I'm watching on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen real quick. Okay, hold on. Share the screen. Why are the tabs not there? If you're wondering why I am, basically, I had to wear not much, is because of the fact that I am in the attic, and unfortunately, it's like my own personal centralia. So it's burning hot in here, and generally I just try to wear like a wife beater and shorts, because I'll die. It's like 100 degrees, just so you know. In any case, I'm trying to find this. Here we go. Share that. And that worked. Okay. And so, in any case, it's it's kind of hot up here, so sorry. this article was a pretty interesting one because of the fact that what it talks about is how both these writers have kind of concluded that the church couldn't really survive in a paradigm or a world where we live in massive amounts of information being free and available. That the scandals that have occurred, for example, the most recent scandals with Roman Catholicism have caused declines in church membership, etc. I don't know that I agree with that hypothesis. I don't know. I don't know that the church had to exist by lies. And that's kind of like what, Rod's point is in this, and I don't know that I agree with it. I think, and maybe this is just because of the nature of my conversion, that the more information we have, the better. And so, because of that, um, I tend to hold to the position that the more information that you have, the better a witness to orthodoxy you can be. However, there's a lot of information. There's more information than most people can really grasp. And so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about some of the rules concerning how to do apologetics and how to do it in this information era. And I'm going to try to make that point as clearly as I can with the next thing that I wanted to really quickly talk about. And this is something that occurred this week. In a strange sort of kind of situation, I realized that Jay Dyer had put up one of my things on YouTube, and that was cool. Thank you for that. It was nice. For 15 minutes, people knew who I was, and that's fine. But I got into an argument, and I got into an argument with a guy. It's in the comments of a post, which I can show later. I can put a link to at the end, where basically the guy is like, okay, well, I'm going to disprove the consensus patrum. All right, and he lists like 5 fathers. I'm like, that's a terrible proof. It doesn't even work. And of course, he made the famous claim that I hear from every single apologist all the time, which is, I've read all the fathers. I despise this claim. And I'm going to tell you why, because it is hilarious that somebody says that. Whenever I hear somebody say, I've read all the fathers, I know they're lying. And so I'm going to just put this up as the title of the next thing that we are doing here, which is, I've read all the fathers. And I put in the big lie is the big library, or let's talk about books. One of the things that I want to establish here is that when we talk about the church fathers, it is honestly, so it's the center of any apologetic for orthodoxy. Our sources of information are the church fathers, the liturgical works of the church, and our prayers. Those are basically all of the what's the word I'm looking for? They're all of our sources. And so without them, you can't do apologetics properly. If some people rely on philosophy and stuff like that. That's handy. Logic is good. But past that, if you're going to get to the authentic tradition of the church, you must rely on the church fathers. Now, this is where I generally find myself at odds with many heterodox apologists when they talk to me, because they usually make grandiose claims about what they've read. And as soon as somebody says something like, I've read all the fathers, I already know they're a liar. And I'll show you how. Let's go through, just to give you a little bit of, I'm going to put the table of contents first. Why not? All right, this, if I may share it, go back to this tab here. Let's see here. Perfect. Okay, let's share this. This is the table of contents to Jean-Paul Migne's Patrologia Graecia and Latina. This is just the Graecia, or the Greek fathers. As you can see, it's got, Clement of Rome, Origen. He includes everybody, like, even if they're not fathers. Lots of volumes of St. John Chrysostom, Theoretic of Cyrus, Procopius of Alexandria, Constantine. This goes all the way to the Council of Florence. So, you have 161 volumes, and this is just in Greek. And then I'm just going to show you something. I'm going to, I clicked on Clement of Rome here, so just to make my point a little more clear, I'm going to now go into one of these books, because that's the next thing you need to do, is you need to look at the books. And I wanted to do that. So let's see here. There we go. So this is on the Internet Archive, so you don't have to use Google. And this is a page, these are folio pages. So as you can see, it's listed like 479, 480. Like, they're so big, these pages, that they're actually 2 pages to a page. So that's what's known as a folio page. This particular book has 652 folio pages. Now, keep in mind that this is the authentic and disputed epistles of Clement of Rome. I'd be very surprised if I knew anyone who read all 650 pages of the homilies, disputed works, etc. of St. Clement of Rome. That's one father, and an early apostolic father. So when I hear somebody say, "Oh, I've read all the fathers," I mark a bet that most likely what they've read is a volume of the apostolic fathers that was put up. Maybe they've read one epistle of Clement of Rome. As you can see, we've got hundreds of pages of Clement of Rome, and so I know that that's a lie. And so let's get back to the table of contents, because this stuff is great, but I could just do this all day. The point I'm trying to make is, let me see here, click this, stop screen, and then share this, share that, and okay, let's go back to that table of contents. That was just on the Greek fathers. Now, if I was to go to the Latin fathers, that's even bigger. That's there's like lots of Augustine. That there's 2 volumes on the Mozarabic Rite. Yeah, there's no way. And by the way, I have looked at those volumes, because I used to deal with those with the Western Rite stuff. This goes all the way to Innocent III. It has 217 volumes, all of which are usually 5 to 1,000 folio pages, in Greek and in Latin. Well, this is just Latin. So this is 217 volumes of Latin, 161 volumes of Greek. If you have read all of this, I can confidently say you've read 80% of the Church Fathers. I know for a fact very few people have done this, including Jacques Paul Mignet himself. And so I do want to get into that, because it's kind of a useful and sad story of, in terms of the life of Jacques Paul Mignet, because I'm just going to straight read it, because of the fact that it's actually, it's kind of sad. And I'm going to include a link to it, because this is the guy who collected, he collected the overwhelming majority of our known church fathers today. And so I'm going to put that there. He was a French priest who published inexpensive and widely distributed editions of theological works, encyclopedias, and the texts of the Church Fathers, with the goal of providing a universal library for the Catholic priesthood. He also seems to have... He does kind of look like an Oompa Loompa. I'm just going to move that. The Patrologia Latina and the Patrologia Graecia, along with the Monumenta Germania Historica, are among the great 19th century contributions to the scholarship of patristics and the Middle Ages. Within the Roman Catholic Church, Mignet's editions put many original texts for the first time into the hands of the priesthood. Now this is, he was a non-political guy. He believed in the power of the press. He created what would be known as the Ateliers Catholiques, or the Catholic workshops at Petit Montrouge. They got really, really big. This is where they did he had over 300 workers. They were producing about, I think it was like 10 books a week or something at one point. But the point is, he was collecting all of the Latin and Greek fathers he could find. He was just stuffing them into books, which is why you'll find that the Latin editions, they note, don't actually, when they're translations of Greek, they're not always accurate, because he just took the best stuff he could find, not checking it. He just so even Mignet himself probably did not read all of the fathers of the church, but he definitely printed them, and for that's kind of an impressive thing. He did a great big work, which unfortunately became completely worthless, because on the night of the 12th or 13th of February 1868, a devastating fire which began in the printing plant destroyed Mignet's establishment. 500,000 plates, because they used plates for printing, stacked in piles, melted in an instant. There are now enormous blocks on the most bizarre forms, reported Le Monde Illustre. Despite his insurance contracts, Miliant was only able to retrieve a pittance. This is really kind of sad because it's like 6 years before he died. Shortly afterwards, Monsignor Georges Darboy, Archbishop of Paris, forbade the continuance of the business and even suspended him from his priestly functions. The Franco-Prussian War of 1870 inflicted further losses. Then, from the Curia of Pope Pius IX came a decree condemning the use of mass stipends to purchase books, which specifically called out Miliant as publications. So, every time when you hear like people like like these Roman Catholic apologists saying, "Oh yes, we believe in knowledge and the fathers," they literally banned priests from reading the church fathers, from using their mass stipends, because the priests would get paid to do masses and stuff like that, to buy books. They weren't allowed to do that unless they were like very approved books, which use those little storehouses of information, those little paragraphs out of context. Like, you could not do what Miliant did without losing your functions, because if you operated in the service of knowledge, they didn't want that. And so that brings us to today. This is it's as sad as it is. Miliant died in like 1875, so he died like about 5 years after all this work, publishing all the church fathers in the best editions he could find. Whole thing was destroyed by a fire. He got banned from doing mass from his archbishop, and then the Pope basically said priests aren't allowed to buy patristic books. So in that context, you can see that they were trying to control the flow of information. Now, the Patrologia Latina, I'm pretty sure, I think it has like something like a current value of like, I'm going to guess $100,000. It's something crazy unless you buy it in a digitized form. And now you don't even have to buy it in a digitized form. It's available for free on the internet. But if Miliant himself, the collector of all these works, didn't read all of these works, do you really think I could possibly believe if somebody says, I've read all the fathers, that they've read all the fathers? No. They haven't read all the fathers, and that's a lie. And so you should call out the lie, and it's important to do that. And so that's going to get me to, how do we survive doing apologetics in an information era where everything has so much information? And the answer to that question is very simple. And I'm going to put it as rule number 2. Now, I realize I have not done rule 0 or rule 1 yet. They are here in the list. But rule number 2, categorization. Knowing how to find something is better than trying to memorize everything. As you can see, it is virtually impossible to memorize everything. And you shouldn't try, because we're not machines. We are not Google. But we have these tools at our disposal. So what I suggest to people, and this is what I've always suggested, is that you need to have categorization skills. This is one of the reasons why libraries are still valuable. A person who understands the Dewey Decimal System has a better chance of succeeding in apologetics than a person who's memorized, say, a book of the Apostolic Fathers. And I'll tell you why. Because to get all of the text of the Apostolic Fathers you would need requires a lot more memorization than most humans are capable of. And people are capable of making mistakes. So it is better to know how to access the fathers than to have them all memorized. It's near impossible. I've never done it. And I'm going to be quite honest. I've been doing this for many, many years. I love reading the homilies of St. John Chrysostom on the scriptures. They help inform me on the Orthodox teaching of the scriptures. How much do I have memorized the homilies of St. John Chrysostom? None. Absolutely zero. I just use the scriptural verse. I go to the volume in the CCEL in English, where I find the volume of the Schaff edition, where it's around that scripture part. Because if you use St. John Chrysostom's homilies or St. Augustine's homilies, what you realize is they do everything in a linear fashion. So if you find a verse nearby, you'll usually find your information. This is very similar to finding a book in a library. If you know how to categorize, then you will succeed in dealing with apologetics. And you will have no fear of the person who says, well, I've read all of the fathers, because we all know now that they're lying. So let's continue on. And I just want to finish. This is part of the reason why I didn't take a lot of things seriously, but I started noticing them on some of these YouTube apologetics things, and I'm going to show one person's library in particular, and this is why I take these things so unseriously. If you look, this is a library of a popular apologetics ink apologist. We all know who he is, showing off his library and trying to prove that he has more knowledge. Well, I can pretty confidently say I don't think he's read all those books in that library, because some of these are volumes. If you notice, that's like the great books is like right up here, and some of these I'm sure he's read. Like I bet he read the Military History of the Western World. There's some liturgical books here on the bottom with a rosary that's supposed to, I guess, replace them. And the point I'm trying to make is these are all sets of encyclopedias and stuff like that. A person with a smartphone can access the very same information for free. There's absolutely nothing special that's being done here except trying to use books as a prop to show off how smart you are. It doesn't actually work. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's theater. And so keep that in mind, that when you're dealing with this sort of thing, theater is bad. And you should be able to beat it by being honest. The counter to this sort of theater, this theater of knowledge, is being honest, and that's how you win. All right, so now that I've done Rule 2, which unfortunately was before Rule 0 and Rule 1, I am going to get to Rule 0, the founding rule of Orthodox Apologetics. Very simple. Have faith. One of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of the heterodox apologists are kind of they try to be internet smart guys, as though like their knowledge of God came from some sort of book or degree or groups of books or a library. It's all a lie, all of it. The point is, have faith in God. I have learned from many years of this that God sometimes can give you an answer faster than Google, faster than a book in a library. And it works. Have faith in him. I can't emphasize this enough. And if you do, let's say you get into an argument, you have faith, you don't know what you're doing, and you feel like you lose, you still believe, but you feel like you let God down, so on and so forth. Two possibilities. A, you had a bad day. B, maybe it's not for you. But the point is that it's not a bad thing to rely more on God than rely on yourself. And this is one of the big things that separates, I guess you could say, doing Orthodox apologetics from doing it another way. Ultimately, you have to have faith. It is the beginning of everything. And so if you don't, give me just 1 second. I just got a message, so just 1 second. I've learned over a couple of years of doing this that it's better to just respond to the message. And so, I'm back. So the point is, having faith is the most important thing. The knowledge that you are in the true faith, the confidence that you are in the true faith that comes from that, is the most important thing. If you don't have that, I sincerely suggest maybe doing apologetics isn't for you, and maybe going to more services and doing more prayers is. As harsh as that sounds, the reason I say that is because of the fact that people have a tendency to think their way out of things, and it's good to use in apologetics, but you have to know how, and you have to have that fundamental principle. And if you're not sure of your faith, then yeah, listen to apologists, learn more, fine. But that doesn't have to be you. I've seen people go through this struggle many, many times. Learn about the faith, learn how the faith is defended, learn about the things that you have doubts on. But you don't have to go arguing with people. And that's it's a later rule, and I'm not going to get into that here, but value your own time. If you know a person is trying to convert you and you know that they know that you have doubts, don't talk to them until you have a good answer. That's why St. Paul says have a ready answer. Don't have an unready answer. Don't have a half answer, because then you're not even sure yourself. You got to get solid on those basics. And that's what we're going to get into right now, because we're going to combine categorization with the whole have faith thing. Watch this. So I'm going to share another screen. And this time around, I'm going to share this one. And I'm going to put links on this stuff. Okay, so many of you probably haven't heard of Bishop Alexander Miliant. And I am trying to find his website. Bishop Alexander Miliant, of course, died in 2005. He was a bishop of the Russian Church abroad. He was a big advocate for union, but he died in 2005. But he had this really, really cool website, which you're staring at now. I mean, this website is like 2000. So if you go to the archive, this was like really kind of advanced. But in any case, it's a simple website. If you've ever been in some of these local churches, you'll notice that they have like these pre-printed pamphlets. A lot of them came from Bishop Alexander's website. So if we go here, this is where categorization comes in handy, because this is a very big website. You'll see that there's a homepage on Orthodox Faith and Life. If you're not ready for apologetics, this is where you need to be. On this first one, on Orthodox Faith and Life, you can go into Defense of the Faith, on Holy Scripture, on the saints and their writings, theology. But that is going to get me to, once you've combined Hab faith and the power of categorization, that's going to get me over to rule number 1, the number 1 rule of Orthodox apologetics. Rule 0 being, of course, have faith, because without faith, you're not doing nothing. But rule number 1 of Orthodox apologetics is have some idea of what you're talking about. I know that sounds cruel, but I am being dead serious. And what I mean by that is, if you do not know the basics of church history, if you don't have those 20 centuries down, learn them. Now, the most common book I hear people suggest is the Orthodox Church by Timothy Ware, which Bishop Callistus Ware. Wasn't a bad book, got worse because they kept on redoing it and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's so much opinion in it. But on this page, let me see if I can find it here. I don't think it's in this one. No, it's not in this one. This was actually pretty good. I don't, there's some stuff here on other stuff. Let me see. On saints and their writings, was it that one? Let me see here. These are actually like very good. Back in the day when they had Yahoo groups, Father Alexander Lebedev of the Rokor actually said the person who reads everything on this site is basically has the level of education of your average priest. I don't disagree. Okay, so here we go. It's in theology. You'll find that there's a book called A Pocket Church History by Father Aidan Keller. Father Aidan Keller he's like half Western, right, half not. He's like a biritual priest in Rokor. And he wrote this little pocket church history. He originally wrote it when he was part of the Milan Synod, and it's a good history. It's good because it's really, really simple and straightforward. You can see from the table of contents, it covers all of the stuff, all the way to today, covers the councils, covers each of these things from the founding of the church, by Jesus Christ, to the current day where we talk about, the difficulties of orthodoxy today. The book is only about 50 pages, but here it is, completely free. If you are new and would like to know the history of the Orthodox Church, this is actually the book I actually recommend to most people, even though it's the size of a booklet, because it's easier to remember 2,000 years of church history by knowing the basics. If you want to get into the details of each of the councils, fine. Do it after you understand the basics. Once you understand the basics, which are available in a small booklet for free on this website, fatheralexander.org, I have no idea, I should add, that I have no idea how fatheralexander.org is still surviving. He started this website when he was a priest. He died in 2005. It's 2021, but the website's still here. So take advantage of it. I don't know who's paying for it. I have no idea, but use it. It is one of the most useful things you could possibly do. And so let's see, that's right there is the main rule in Orthodox apologetics. Have an idea of what you're talking about. I'm not saying I get every detail right, because I don't. I don't think anyone does. I've looked at debates, even debates I've had online ages ago. I read them and I'm like, ooh, you really didn't know what you were talking about there, buddy. And, have faith in God, know your basics, and if you screw up the rest, it'll get fixed later. And if it doesn't get fixed later, maybe this wasn't for you. But the point is that it's still, that's the main thing. Have an idea of what you're talking about. And you will be able to conquer the people who say, I've read all the fathers, because you already know you're just fighting a liar. So that's not hard. You will not be afraid of people with giant libraries, because the truth is, no library, as it says in the scriptures, could contain all the works of Christ. So how can any library, even the closest we've gotten is Miliant, contain so much of the fathers be read? You can't. And that's part of why we get back to that whole thing in the beginning with talking about what Roger's position was. Because he was basically saying, well, maybe to cover up stuff a noble lie is necessary for society to survive. No, society falls apart all the time. It has fallen apart many times in the history of the church. Information is not a bad thing, because information reveals the truth of orthodoxy. There's no way to be afraid of it. So yes, if somebody calls me out on, say, St. Augustine or St. Gregory of Nyssa or something, I know how to find St. Gregory of Nyssa and St. Augustine in English, and I will ask, what are you speaking about directly? And then usually they'll get some quote. And if you know and have been working with the fathers and have been reading things, using them to exegete your scripture, for example, then you will know how to find what reference this person is talking about. Oftentimes, the person who's talking about the reference does not know how to find it. But let's say they do. You find it. You are then able to read in context. Context is the next great rule of doing Orthodox apologetics, but I did not write that down because I really wanted to get, the basics that I got already. Finally, let's, I want to make this point. I'm going to make this point so many times over the next couple of shows because it is so important. And that is this. There is no degree in apologetics, and no, it's not for everyone. I've already covered no, it's not for everyone, but I'm going to rant a little bit about there's no degree in apologetics because I'm getting a little tired of reading, especially some of these heterodox apologists going, I read something where it's an amateur apologist, and this is something I covered with the last show with Craig with, Reason and Theology, writing that. There is no degree in apologetics. If there was a degree in apologetics, I'd like to know what school that was. And it might be like the Mormons or something, and it's just some made-up degree that's not worth anything. The point I'm trying to make is apologetics requires work. It doesn't require titles. There's a Father Peter Heers taught an apologetics course at Holy Trinity Seminary, but in no way, shape, or form does that mean that you can get a degree in apologetics. Apologetics, or as it used to be called, accusatory theology, is something that has been largely lost on the church school campuses. It's something that needs to be brought back, but there's no degree program for it. There's barely any courses for it. So anyone who talks about their degree and puts apologetics in the same sentence is already lying to you because they don't have a degree in apologetics. That's made up. And so the point is they have a degree in something. I'm sure they do. And I'm sure that, having a degree in management is very helpful. It's probably helpful with categorization, but it's not helpful with apologetics. So I don't buy into any of that. You shouldn't either. What you should be doing is reading your pocket church history to make sure you got your history right. And if you do that, then you're going to be in a great situation. Finally, this leads to the last question I have here before I shut down. And that is, hold on, please. Can we do an open mic? I don't know. I've been debating this question because sometimes, scheduling things is a pain. I don't get many requests because I think I've scared off pretty much most of the Roman Catholic Church. And I don't, Protestants don't, they don't come to my show, except there was that one guy who did from above. He was a nice guy. But generally, what I don't see is it's not common to get scheduled things, but I do notice that people do leave an open mic, and some people will try to call in, they'll try to find it out, they'll try to see what they can do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good to give a ready answer. I'm kind of all for it, but I don't know if that's something we should do here, or we should just focus on the more technical stuff, on the pre-recorded stuff. As you notice, I'm going to I just moved it forward another week to do the history of Roman Catholic traditionalism, which is going to be a pre-recorded. It's not going to be live, but I have to take apart all the stuff because, as you know, it's like an onion. That particular episode is kind of like an onion. You think the history of Roman Catholic traditionalism starts in 1965. The truth is, you could say it starts in 1870 with the rise of the Old Catholics. That's not altogether honest because they became like Anglican and gay. And then, then you have for me, the real start would be 1943 with Divino Affolante Spiritu, where basically they chucked the Latin Vulgate Bible and said, let's start using better Bibles like the Protestants, and then wrote the modern Bibles that we have today, most of which are terrible. The Jerusalem Bible being a notable and poetic exception at the expense of accuracy. So I think that's I think it's a question. And okay, this is a good question. Somebody said, "How do you know you're meant for apologetics?" In general, that's something that you kind of fall into. And what I mean by that is, let's say you are, I don't know, a convert. You converted to Orthodoxy. You're going to church, stuff like that. But you are placed in a position where people are asking questions. You can answer them, and people start issuing challenges. If you can do okay with early and primitive challenges, and you go deeper into your church history, God will give you more challenges. You'll just fall into it. I mean, I don't think that there's it's all situational. If you're not, let's say you're a seminarian, and you're a seminarian and you don't do very much outside of go to seminary. You're on campus. You're looking for your wife. You haven't really, you're probably going to go to the old country for that, something like that. And then basically you don't really have many opportunities to interact except online, which that doesn't count. I mean, like in real life, to actually answer people. Maybe it's not. It's something you have to discover. But it's the experience. You learn it through experience. Let's say you get badly injured in an argument. Your pride is wounded. You weren't that good of a talker. The truth of the matter is, you go to the church, the priest gives the answer, you're like, shoot, I should have said that. You have to ask yourself, do you really want to go back and try to say it? I mean, the ultimate thing is not everyone's meant to do it. Everyone can do it, but not everyone's meant to do it. It's not in everyone's temperament. Some people do not want to have a perpetual fight. And I guarantee you, if you go into apologetics, it's probably going to be for a very long time. It's funny looking at the Steve Skojec thing. He was talking on Twitter about being attacked by Mario Dirksen. And I was dumbfounded because Mario Dirksen, back when I first started, was somebody I actually I knew, even when I was going from Roman Catholic apologetics to Orthodox apologetics when I became Orthodox. And I actually met the guy, and he was like a seminarian in this Roman Catholic seminary. Now he runs Novus Ordo Watch. So it's just kind of funny that I guess, and he's also a big troll. So, it's kind of funny that these kind of things happen as they do. But at the same time, he wanted to argue why I shouldn't become Orthodox. It wasn't very successful, and we shook hands and I walked away. The point is that you're meant for apologetics when God keeps sending you the challenges. And so I went from getting challenged constantly by people. The next challenge was applying that in my personal life. And applying it in the ecclesiastical life, and I failed. And I failed badly and thought apologetics, I felt like I had abandoned my purpose. And so I stopped doing it. But a few years later, somebody asked me for help. Really great Orthodox guys in the Carpatho-Russian diocese. And we were able to put together some apologetics groups on Facebook. And we started growing that, and that got big, and then there were more people. When we moved to YouTube, we started seeing that there were more people that were involved in that too. And we're here today. There's just apologists all over, and it's so awesome. So I don't know that my role is meant to be on the streets anymore. I seem like I'm not very not called to do that, but maybe I will be later. But I do know that if God is calling you to defend the faith, you'll know. You'll know. Um, and if there are any questions, anything you want to throw out there, please go ahead. I'll be glad to take any questions or comments. And otherwise we'll call it a day in about 5 minutes. I think we've covered everything. We've covered the three rules, the rule 0 and rule 1 and rule 2. And we've covered the fact that you can't know everything, and people who do are liars. So this is one of the things that I once again just want to stress that, last is that you know what type of people you're dealing with based on how they come at you. And so the point is, if a person confidently tells you, orthodoxy demolished, 95% of the time he read some guy's argument that was titled Orthodoxy Demolished or something, and just assumed, oh, now I am genius. I can say I read all the fathers. You didn't read all the fathers. No, that we've shown it. You saw it. You saw the list of the table of contents. You saw the thickness of the folio volumes. I will include links to them so you can go to those gigantic volumes yourself because it's free. Nobody, especially among these heterodox apologists, has a physical copy of Media's Patrologia Latina or Graecia. Nobody. None of them. So if you hear I've read all the fathers, they haven't even seen all the fathers. Don't buy into lies. Just be confident, have faith, rule 0, know what you're talking about, rule 1, and know how to find things. Knowing how to find something is better than trying to memorize everything. And with that, I'm not seeing any more comments, so I'm going to just, we'll talk a little bit more about what the plan is. I'm going to close this out at around just about 6 o'clock. Basically, I've moved the date again for the history of Roman Catholic traditionalism. The only reason I'm doing this is because I saw one of these Roman YouTubers saying that basically like the traditionalist Catholics and the Orthodox are working together because of no, we're not. We're not working together. The rad trads or whatever you want to call them they're a self-parody. If your system is fundamentally based on a centralized hierarchical authority in Rome, and you deny that centralized hierarchical authority in Rome, you're not Roman Catholic anymore. You might be Old Catholic, you might be some kind of Protestant, but you're not Roman Catholic anymore. And this is something that some people are starting to realize the logic. One thing I read was a New York Times writer who noted that the Pope Francis is using his powers in a way that progressives used to claim that they hated, like forceful motu proprio, secret and biased commissions, so on and so forth. I'm like, oh, so he's acting like an actual pope because he has those powers. And so the point is, we are watching the Roman Catholic Church being subverted by a liberal pope. Not a big deal. That was always part of the package. And the truth is, that's how it started. It started by subverting the Orthodox West and going to war with it and killing off innocent bishops and enslaving priests' wives and horrible things like that. That's all, the great product of, Hildebrand of Savannah's program. So the point is, they're just watching this happen again, except with a lot less, slavery. So that's, that's all I've got here. Again, if you like the show, hopefully I can, edit myself out. No one needs to see that. But anyway, if you like the show, then, as always, like and subscribe. Oh, somebody wrote something. I'm having trouble believing that Orthodox is the true church instead of Roman Catholicism when the Orthodox Church seems to. I'm not answering that. I'm just not answering that because it's, first off, the divisions in Orthodoxy, if all parties are Orthodox, are usually negligible. Second off, there's never been a claim of centralized authority in Orthodoxy, so it's just not relevant. It's my job as an apologist is not to make people feel better. about the answers that Orthodoxy gives. My job is not to pick a side. My job is not to, sit here and be like my team. I defend the Orthodox faith against heresy. And that's the job of an apologist. So that's where I'm leaving that. And so anyway, we are now at 5:59 p.m. And let's see here. It's we're gonna take off now. I want to thank everyone for their questions. I want to thank everyone for their comments. If thoughts, concerns, complaints, please feel free. And thank you again for listening. And have a good night. Take care.